It's finally time for me to reveal my full power rankings for this year's Overwatch World Cup. I've been delaying it for the past couple of weeks in order to have a look at the strength of some of the teams in show matches, whilst also having a chance to see many of them compete in the Euro Cup that just concluded the other day. Now just as some obvious statements before I get into it, these are just my opinions, and given it's very hard to research some of these smaller nations involved, it's very likely I might make the odd mistake, and you might not like where I've placed your country. But that's okay, because at the end of the day this is just a bit of fun. I hope to put the spotlight on every team that will be competing, no matter if they're likely to do well or not, with probably my more accurate rankings coming later on once we enter the top 20. Without further ado though, let's get into my bottom 7 from 47 to 41, which consists of Paraguay at 47, Egypt at 46, Malaysia at 45, the Philippines at 44, Colombia at 43, South Africa at 42, and lastly Austria at 41. Starting with my bottom ranked team Paraguay, let's focus in on the positives. They seem to be a very enthusiastic nation with a fun Twitter account who's been helping to develop their new amateur scene that's only recently started to get off the ground. It should come as no surprise that they have no players with experience at the Contenders or Overwatch League level, but hopefully this is a year that can see them lay the foundations for developing their Overwatch scene further, even if it sees little to no international success immediately. Moving on to Egypt, who sit at 46. They are another side who I haven't been able to get a very good look at. However, they have a couple of players who are certainly of note, which can be found at the support and tank roles, in Crits and Holly Pros. They were members of Inferno Gaming Zone, who at the end of 2018 came second place at the Overwatch Saudi Regional Tournament, giving this side a rare instance of successful LAN experience. That said, most of their other players are unknown and inexperienced, so I'm not sure they'll go too far. They certainly are under no pressure to do well, and I could see them picking up an upset. Malaysia come in at 45 for me, with their main issue being a significant lack of experience, with no player from their country yet reaching the Contenders level. Their location though should see them get plenty of scrim opportunities, with some more established countries in Southeast Asia. This should benefit them tremendously, and that's before I even mention their social media presence, which I think has been great, with their logo and jersey designs, at least in my opinion, being clearly some of the best that have been produced so far. I'm going to pick out their DPS player Jack as one to watch, purely because I like the Incredibles, even if this is unlikely to be the origin of its handle. Up next at 44, I've got the Philippines, who for the first time of all of these teams so far, actually have a current Contenders player in their tank player Grandi Suto, who plays for the Far East Society and Pacific Contenders. They also greatly benefit from the fact that 5 members of their 7 play for an open division team called MMK, that will immediately assist the squad in playing together with one another, with pre-made synergy having been built up. It's clear they have a very hard-working coaching staff and social media team, so if the players can also put in significant effort themselves, this team can make a statement or two. Colombia are the next country we come to at 43, and rumours are that this side is an exciting one, which also benefits from a couple of their players owning a small bit of Contenders experience. The key names to point out are Box 6 at support, as well as Serki, who has gained notoriety after moving across to PC from console, while still sometimes using a hybrid setup between the two. Again, this is another team that has little weight on its shoulders, but certainly could surprise a team or two if not taken seriously. Then we finally have our first Euro Cup entry in South Africa, who I've put at 42. Given the significant lack of experience on their roster, as well as poor latency across the Euro, it's fair to say that many expected them to make an early exit. Whilst this would end up coming true, I think South Africa put on a very valiant and dignified display in most of their defeats, with their support player Visions as well as their DPS player Leica Luke standing out the most to me, especially when the latter was on Farah. They even took a sorry looking Portugal side right down to the wire in a very close 2-1 series, which demonstrated they were not a team that everyone could just roll over, and it's this gritty determination that's led me to putting them just ahead of the others in my rankings. To round out this first group of 41, I went for Austria, who are my next Euro Cup entry in these power rankings. In What 7 and Minimi from Clock with Vendetta, who are an excellent pairing at coach and captain, but I thought would have performed much better over the past couple of weeks. However, in reality this team severely lacks experience, hurt further by the absence of Eclipse following the age restrictions, which resulted in an ugly tournament that saw them resoundingly beaten by the other members of Group A, and unless there's a major turnaround, I don't see things improving by the time World Cup rolls around. The next 10 teams we'll be looking at sees us transition into the 30s, as from 40 to 31 I've placed Greece at 40, Latvia at 39, Switzerland at 38, Romania at 37, India at 36, Ireland at 35, Poland at 34, Peru at 33, Mexico at 32, and finally Kuwait at 31. The next 3 teams in my power rankings all also participated at the Euro Cup, and let's start with the Greeks, who despite having a very good coach in Ilka, perhaps didn't perform as well as they would have hoped, with blowout defeats to all the other members of Group A, before rebounding with a convincing victory of their own over Austria, to ensure they didn't get knocked out, but this just led them to a quick round of 16 exit against Bulgaria. A big issue is a lack of experience with no Contenders talent, but hopefully this tournament has helped them gain some experience, and perhaps with just the rumoured return of a Fable franchise, their tank player Fable and the rest of the squad will bounce back by the time the World Cup starts. Latvia comes in next, and they had a very underwhelming showing at the Euro Cup as well, as they failed to pick up a single map. Again, it's clear that a lack of experience and talent has affected them majorly, with the absence of both Sharik and Mirror being a major blow towards any long shot hopes they might have had. and I do worry that things may only get worse from here on out for this squad. Switzerland were the only other squad besides Latvia that went through the Euro Cup without winning a map. In their defence they had the toughest road, having been placed alongside Israel, Germany and Norway in the group of death, before being handed Denmark in the round of 16. The star man going forward is going to be Helva the tank role, who is the only member of the squad with some time in contenders. But hopefully this experience of facing some of the strongest non-seeded teams at the Euro Cup will have benefited them greatly to help them improve moving forward. Moving on to 37, I've put Romania, who is nice to see compete in the Euro Cup despite their initial suggestion they were going to give up on the World Cup entirely due to funding. Of course the most notable player is Sky Reaper from Clockwork Vendetta, and whilst they aren't the most talented squad in the world, they put on a decent display at the Euro Cup, destroying Latvia and making themselves somewhat competitive against Spain and Denmark, so it's very possible they could catch a team out. At 36 though, comes one of the greatest teams ready to compete at the Overwatch World Cup this year, and that's Team India. If you haven't seen their Final 7 announcement video, I'd 100% recommend you go and watch it, as it's amazing and brilliantly edited. Behind the most experienced member at DPS, Cruzy from Contenders, this is a team that if they are even half as good as their video announcement, will go on to win us all. So why have I put them so low? Well, that should be clear. That's to keep the superstar team under wraps and not allow other countries to prepare in time. At the Overwatch World Cup, we will all learn the truth, and that this is India's world and we're all just living in it. That's except for my next team, which comes in at 35. The underdogs themselves, Team Ireland. There's the same principle here. They can't exactly be underdogs if I go and place them too highly now. A recent 4-0 win over Greece has shown they mean business, with their main men likely to be Liam at main tank, Buckle at DPS and Scally at flex support. You underestimate them at your own peril, as with Guinness flowing through their veins, Ireland will be going on to not only face, but defeat Team South Korea at the World Cup this year, whether you like it or not. And it almost seems destined that this titan is going to have to face off head to head with India at some point, in a true battle of supremacy and dominance on the international stage. It kind of feels like we take a step back, as we now move on to Poland at 34. But don't forget about the threat this team can pose, especially if their Overwatch League player Danier is firing on all cylinders. They didn't exactly excel at the Euro Cup, with 2 good wins over weak sides of Austria and Greece, whilst also losing to Saudi Arabia and Italy. But with many of the players having played together before, as well as having the odd bit of Contenders experience, this team is definitely primed to cause an upset, even if I doubt they can progress very far themselves. We now take a trip back to South America, where I have Peru coming at number 33. It might surprise some people to see them ranked this highly, with a clear lack of experience in some areas of the team. That said, their coach, Keith, has been playing on Fury, who are one of the best teams in South American Contenders right now, and he'll be looking to get the most out of their 2 other Contenders players, in Baskerville on the off-tank, and Poke at flex support, to try and cause a few surprises with this young and upcoming roster, with Poke in particular having a very good reputation for adapting within metas as a member of Pinguinos, who are another team right at the top of South American Contenders at this moment in time. From Peru, we travel slightly north to Mexico, who you'll find at 32. Of course it makes sense to start with their leader and frontline at main tank Nome. The ex-San Francisco shot player who's been honing his skills in Contenders will definitely be looking to show off his quality once more. I've heard a lot of good things surrounding Sam's Farah play, combined with the experience he's earned in South American Contenders. And whilst they are quite a difficult team to accurately judge at this moment in time, I reckon they might be one team that might go a little further than people expect. Completing this next group of 10, we return once more to a Euro Cup participant in Kuwait, who have placed at 31. The Blue Camels were one of the group stage surprises in my eyes. They put on a very positive display, picking up convincing wins over Portugal and South Africa, while competitively challenging the top 2 in the group, Bulgaria, and the eventual winners Iceland. Their coach Toxin TV and support player Lorp have LAN experience winning the Saudi Arabia regional tournament with Oshtek Warriors, and with Fankda putting in some really strong displays on Farah. This is a team that is showing development and improvement, and certainly shouldn't be discounted heading into the prelims. Now we start to move towards the upper end of my power rankings, with the teams I've ranked from 30 to 21, who really start to become the first realistic outside shouts for a BlizzCon group stage berth. At 30 I've gone for Portugal, Spain are at 29, Hong Kong are at 28, Chile sits at 27, Japan's at 26, Argentina's at 25, New Zealand's at 24, Norway's at 23, Thailand's at 22, and to round out these 10 nations I went with Singapore at 21. But Portugal and Spain are interesting cases, which is why I have them in the middle of this pack position. If you've seen any other power rankings or predictions, you'll have likely seen both of these teams nestling quite comfortably inside the top 20, with quite a bit of interest and intrigue surrounding them. The issue I have is that even though we got to see them at the Euro Cup, we didn't see them at full strength. None of their Overwatch League players in grey, Harry Hook or Neptuno played for their respective countries, and on the side of Portugal they were also without their highly rated contender support duo of Afox and Fat from the Angry Titans. Without these crucial pieces, both teams struggled at the Euro Cup, with Portugal in particular not looking good at all, having to scrape by South Africa to avoid being eliminated in the group stage. Both were convincingly defeated 3-0 in the round of 16, and as they are now, they wouldn't have a very good chance at the Overwatch World Cup. With key players likely to come back as far as I'm aware, I'm giving both of these nations a little bit of slack, as they had the potential to do so much better, but for now I won't be putting them any higher. At 28 though is Hong Kong. It might be a country that is often forgotten about in the Pacific region. They have quite an exciting roster with a Contenders champion support player in Mango Jai from Talon Esports. There was other Contenders players in their DPS Mui, who plays for Nova MS, not forgetting Miku as well. Hong Kong in previous World Cup prelims has always come out and been competitive. I think that once again they might show off their quality and cause some upsets. Chile comes in at 27, as probably the third best nation hailing from South America. The team's coach, as well as 4 of the final 7, are all members of a Contenders side called Team Scarlet that rose up through Contenders trials last season, despite then underwhelming a little bit in Contenders itself. But this provides an experienced and pre-synergized foundation for the Chileans to build upon, especially when you factor in their DPS player Debut and off-tank Glitch from Up Gaming and Penguinos respectively, who are both very talented playmakers from top South American Contenders teams, will be looking to propel this team forward. Moving on to 26, we arrive at Japan, who just like Chile have a core and coach made up from Contenders roster, this time from Greenleaves in Pacific Contenders. It's almost a repeat point really, with its pre-existing synergy combined with the talented veteran additions of Haku and Tayo, make Japan a much better team than many will expect, and if they can get some other good scrim practice with other Asian nations, then they could perhaps catch some European or American nations off guard. Argentina sees us enter the top 25, and to be honest perhaps I've been a little harsh with their placement here. On paper their final 7 looks incredibly strong, as it's primarily made up of talents from top teams in South American Contenders, including Maximo, who's a champion with Loki Esports. Their flex support Searchy has also been making waves with his play on Ana, whilst Klaus might be more recognisable to many of you as a member of Uprising Academy. They are probably the first team I think legitimately can compete for a spot inside the top 10, so why do I have them this low? The reason is because of the recent reputation of South America, at least in my eyes. Whilst it is certainly a thriving competitive Contenders region, as we saw in the Atlantic Showdown, the representative Loki Esports struggled a lot when put up head to head with the best from the Atlantic region, which looks weaker than the Pacific, so I do have my doubts for how strong this team really is. And that's why Argentina's been punished. If you have been watching my channel for the past couple of months, you'll know how much I like the look of Team New Zealand, who come in at 24. I think this team's greatest weapon will be its DPS duo of Colourhex and Sign, which could give a lot of teams trouble, especially if the meta remains weighted towards DPS players having a major impact. The rest of the squad is made up of players on the strongest teams in Australian Contenders at the moment, and whilst they'll need to work hard, this might be the first year that New Zealand breaks out from the shadow of its neighbour Australia at the World Cup, with a definite potential to do so. Norway now comes in at 23, which I think will disappoint the very passionate fans they have, but even they probably have to admit it's a currently deserving position. It's not as if they had a bad Euro Cup by any means, competitively fighting in a group of death and making it to the quarter-finals before being unceremoniously dumped out by Italy. It cannot be denied this team has some serious talent, the main stars being Onigod at DPS and Decod at main tank. The problem is that it was these two individuals who probably underperformed the most, with Decod struggling with his positioning despite finding some improvement when switching onto the Sigma, whilst Onigod never seemed to really find its rhythm, missing shots he would have ordinarily found picks from. The rest of the squad I thought performed okay, with some bright spots at their best, that really show they can compete and challenge with the better sides if on the ball. The main question will become the World Cup, whether they can in fact be consistent and reliable, which the Euro Cup has raised some doubts about. Thailand at 22 are another side that is filled with veteran experience and a heap of energetic talent from the contender scene. The 3 key men are of course Oputo from Talon Esports, Mickey from the Dallas Fuel, and also Titowat from the Uprising Academy, who will need to turn up if they want to be taken seriously, the other members yet to really prove themselves. And whilst on paper they always look strong, which is why I have them this high, I do reckon despite this they're going to disappoint in the prelims, as they have for the past couple of years again. Finishing this group at 21 is Singapore, who I'm a lot higher on for this year. The coach from the LA Gladiators, John Gall, has put together a very impressive roster, largely made up of some of the strongest players from Pacific Contenders, outside of Talon Esports. Xeon Flux and Xenofly have reached the finals themselves, showing that this team has plenty of experience, but with perhaps their weakest position being DPS, with Lil Rack still underage, a lot will rest on Bubble Kitty to take up the reins, and spearhead this team from his position, if they want to put in a strong showing, and perhaps sneak into the top 10. This is a part of my power rankings where the competition becomes a lot fiercer, with many of the teams on paper quite evenly matched, but from 20 to 11 I ended up going for Taiwan at 20, Bulgaria at 19, Brazil at 18, Saudi Arabia at 17, Russia at 16, Israel at 15, Italy at 14, Netherlands at 13, Germany at 12, and finishing us off, Australia at 11. Kicking us off, Taiwan at 20 is always a team that gets recognised as having a pretty exciting roster, and 2019 is no different. Of course, most eyes will be on their DPS player Bacon Jack, who plays for the Chengdu Hunters. In the past, he's performed very well on the international stage. Looking past him though, we have a core of players from Nova MS who will provide this team with a backbone of synergy that runs through each role. And with Contenders' experience all around, this is certainly a team that if given the right meta could really flourish. Bulgaria's position at 19 is a direct result of their brilliant performance at the Euro Cup of the past few weeks. It would be fair to say that many had simply written this side off before the tournament even started, but they've proven all the doubters wrong, and despite exiting at the quarterfinals, were the only team to actually beat the eventual winners Iceland 3-2 in the group stage. Their key players are obviously Buck on Doomfist, who's always kept himself involved, whilst Boga, their other contenders player, put on an impressive showing himself, to highlight that this team, despite its comparative lack of talent, can challenge with the very best, and is certainly deserving some major recognition, which I think this position provides. At 18 we see our last South American nation in Brazil, and again the reason they aren't placed any higher is the point that follows on from what I talked about with Argentina. With the exception of Alamal from the Overwatch League, and Chosen from Up Gaming, every other member of this roster, including the coach, is on Loki Esports, who are back-to-back South American contenders champions, providing this team with a lot of synergy and a positive successful culture. I really like the DPS pair of Marif and Ludwig, who I think are really talented, alongside Ole and a very experienced Honorato, but seeing how unconvincing they were at the Atlantic Showdown, I'm yet to be convinced that this squad can break through into the top 10 when they face off against similarly rated countries from Europe. At 17 we can see Saudi Arabia, who are another who definitely impressed at the Euro Cup. Their only contenders player, KSAA, came in with some really strong performances on Sigma, backed up by their other most experienced member, Khazar Plays, who previously won the Saudi Regional Invitational on Oshtek Warriors as a DPS. They finished a very strong second place in Group A behind Italy, and went on to smash Kuwait before giving Denmark their toughest test outside the final, almost stealing the series away from them as it went to all 5 maps. What Saudi Arabia demonstrated is they definitely have the talent to compete with some of the other best teams from Europe, and given this is very hard to prepare or scout for them, they are certainly a side that could catch out higher seeds if given the opportunity. Russia comes in at 16, and even though I think they're probably on a similar level to a lot of other teams I have just above them, if they had been at the Euro Cup they would have been in the group of death, which would attest to them brilliantly. But on paper this squad still looks very strong, with an Overwatch League DPS duo of Shadowburn and Enlair to front an all-round very contenders experienced team, including Shao from the EU Contenders Champions HCL Esports. Like last year when they ran Finland very close, I expect them to do the same once again, but given I haven't seen how the squad can adapt in this meta just yet, I hesitate to put them too highly. Israel then enter the fray at 15, and like quite a few of these teams at this stage in my rankings, they've earned their position through an excellent showing at the Euro Cup. Israel impressed us all by coming out on top of the group of death over both Norway and Germany, thanks primarily to the DPS player of Alive and Sigma play of Knassen, which was brilliant in the opening week. They were unlucky to just be edged out by the eventual winners Iceland 3-2 in the quarters. With further contenders' talents of Awkward and Darkitas, this team has firmly stamped their authority as a team to be respected, showing that even without EQO, they have a great shot of making the top 10. Next on the list at 14 is Italy, who I have to say was one of the more underappreciated nations, who I personally didn't give enough praise to at the Euro Cup. They dominated their group without breaking a sweat, before winning the most one-sided quarter-final, but brushing aside Norway with ease 3-0. They eventually came unstuck by Denmark in a competitive affair, but still went on to beat a weakened German side to claim 3rd place. Heartbeat and Dragon Eddy are their 2 recognisable contenders' names, but overall I think they had some of the best coordinated team play displayed at the Euro Cup, and if this continues moving forward as the team gains more experience, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them break through into the top 10. The Netherlands' positioning at 13 is more down to respect to the talent they have in their team more than anything else, given there hasn't really been much news on how strong they are in this new meta. As said, they've been improving year on year with their World Cup performances, and with a team full of contenders' experience and a star-studded DPS duo of A10 and Vigility, it's certainly hard to look past this team, and I believe they have a genuine and real strong shot at competing for an official spot at BlizzCon. But Germany's position at 12 meanwhile may be an immediate head-scratcher, given they've recently lost to 2 of the teams above them in Israel and Italy, as well as finishing lower than Italy in the Euro Cup itself. What this doesn't take into account, however, is the absent members on the side of Germany, notably Moose, who went on holiday after the groups, despite showing a great knowledge and understanding of the new hero Sigma. And with him, perhaps they would have been able to overcome both Iceland and Italy in the later rounds. Predictably though, Germany looked like a very strong side that can also call upon the talented individual skill and surprising flexibility of Engineer as well to continue to make a splash and challenge the very best countries from Europe, so don't count them out for a top 10 spot at all. Just outside the top 10, at 11, is Australia, who will be looking to keep up their consistent World Cup success of making it through to BlizzCon. Obviously losing a player and leader like Custer, who decided not to participate this year, is undoubtedly a major blow to the side, but one that their head coach Gumba is hoping they can bounce back from. This year they have a fantastic mix of World Cup experience from last year, with CKM Trell and Punk, combined with top-level Australian contenders' talent at support in Unter and Tung. They definitely have the talent to take on any of these teams that sit around them, and have never failed to reach BlizzCon. They always seem to find a way, and it's a risky bet if you want to doubt them again. At last we reach my top 10, which I'm sure is going to find a way to upset some people. From 10 to 1, I eventually decided upon Denmark at 10, Iceland at 9, Finland at 8, Sweden at 7, the UK at 6, France at 5, Canada at 4, China at 3, the USA at 2, and shocking absolutely no one, South Korea at 1. Opening the accounts in the top 10 is Denmark at 10 itself. They've been earmarked for a while as one of the strongest teams in Europe this year, with a very talented roster that draws upon both Overwatch League talent, as well as high-class contenders talent as well, with players like Fischer and Henningsen winning EU contenders as part of HSL Esports. Indeed, at the Euro Cup, for the most part they performed very well, as they destroyed the group stage. But in the playoffs, however, they did get a little shaky, with players perhaps trying a little too hard to make the big plays by themselves, which saw them only narrowly defeat Saudi Arabia and Italy, before then convincingly losing the final to Iceland. They're still definitely a favourite to make BlizzCon, but what the Euro Cup has highlighted is a need for this team to work on its coordination to ensure they don't slip up and get the most out of their very talented roster. At number 9 though comes the Euro Cup champions themselves, Iceland. Given that I spent a whole video talking about them yesterday, I don't want to talk for too long, but again they showed top quality talent from their experienced players in Hafiko and Finzi, which was packaged together brilliantly in a complete all-round team performance, as on the response to their group stage loss to Bulgaria, to come back and edge out both Israel and Germany 3-2, to then end up besting Denmark 3-0 in the final. They're definitely a dark horse, but not one that can rest on its laurels, as a lapse in concentration could have easily ended their Euro Cup run, and emphasises that they are not miles ahead of a chasing pack, instead they lead just by a whisker. I decided to put Finland and Sweden at 8 and 7 respectively, as overall I like some of the talent they have selected, but at the same time it feels hard to judge them beside the other European contenders who competed at the Euro Cup. In regards to Sweden, I think they're a very strong dark horse for this year, with a fantastic tank line of Lolsish and Elivo, but alongside Snello at DPS I believe will take this team very far. For Finland though, there are a few more questions. Their support line seems great, and with the contenders' talents of Davin and Zappis from Giganti, they should also back themselves to qualify for BlizzCon. The main questions are in regards to LH Cloudy, who hasn't enjoyed the best season ever, as well as the other two DPS players in Ricky and RCK, with May's inclusion in the meta at risk, whilst we are yet to truly see what RCK can deliver himself following his role change, so I have a bit more faith in Sweden over Finland. Like the team below them, the UK at 6 gave me a little headache to think about when putting together this rankings. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton of Overwatch League talent that performed really well for the Brits last year, resulting in our historic upset win over the USA, but if I'm being as objective as possible, with the exception of Funny Astro, every other Overwatch League member of Team UK has not enjoyed the recent months of this year, with below par performances coming from Fusions, Cruise and Boombox, whilst Kib has been relegated to the bench. I think a lot of this is going to rest on our contenders star KSP this year to get the ball rolling, and in the end I do have faith that Fusions and the lads will turn it round in time for BlizzCon, which is why I've kept them here. But should form continue to decline, it wouldn't be that shocking, at least to me, if Team UK actually failed to make it to BlizzCon, with plenty of hungry sides just behind them at their heels, waiting for an opportunity. France coming in next for the number 5 position. They have a bye to BlizzCon groups and have plenty of time to prepare and practice together in the lead up to it. But looking on paper at this roster as a whole, I don't think it's nearly as strong as the others I have next, and will likely stronger in their group against South Korea and the USA. Unlike last year, when they came in with a full roster made of Overwatch League talent, France this year have placed a greater emphasis on bringing in players from the contenders scene. I don't mind this decision at all, as it's created a fantastic looking DPS duo of Soon and Leaf, which I think could be one of the most promising and exciting at the World Cup this year, and Poco has shown his ability on Sigma in the play-ins as well, with his play on this hero in particular stopping me from genuinely considering putting France closer to teams like Sweden and Finland. The question will be how their support line plays alongside Chubbs, who arguably weren't their best available options at their respective positions, and if they want to do well in such a hard group, they'll need an all-round quality performance I'm not too sure they're going to be able to produce. Canada at 4 once again looks set to be one of the favourites to make it through to the Final Four at the Overwatch World Cup this year. It's very interesting to note that they're one of the very few teams who have actually replicated the 2018 roster for a second year running, and if Shawful and XQC play up to their potential, there's no doubt in my mind they'll be a team to watch. The biggest question though, at least in my opinion, is how Note adapts at the off-tank position. It would be fair to say that he's definitely taken a step back this year in the Overwatch League, and looked very poor in the Canadian Trouts in comparison to Mufin, with Note's adaptability at the time the main issue, as he was required to play heroes besides from his comfort pick Diva. With the new meta now requiring the off-tank to either play Sigma or flex onto an Orisa, Note will be under a lot of pressure to put in a good showing and not hold the team back, because if he cannot, it will certainly kill Canada's hopes of being a true contender, whilst making his selection come under a lot of scrutiny. China at 3 once again looked like the most reliable challenger to South Korea, with the team this year effectively being the Chengdu Hunters, with the additions of Gushui and importantly Eileen, who did look really good on the Doomfist lately. I've seen some others place them at number 2, and if they perform well it shouldn't shock me to see them reach the final again. But just seeing how shaky the Hunters looked in their play and match, it has knocked a little bit of my confidence in this squad, which I'm sure will commit to its own style, but may for once actually underachieve expectations. At number 2 then, this means I have the USA. This is definitely not the strongest possible squad they could have put together in my opinion, the notable absentee being Dogman, but it should definitely give them the best chance in the past few years of seriously challenging South Korea to win the World Cup. Sinatra and Corey lately have been playing brilliantly at DPS over the past month, and the rest of the team comes in with a level of success and form we haven't always seen with the US. The issue is, as always though, is will they bottle it? They consistently get knocked out at BlizzCon in the earliest possible stage, often cracking under the pressure of expectation, and they'll need to take each match seriously if they really want to improve and climb to the very top. But of course at 1, I'd be mad not to put South Korea. Again, I'll say that in my opinion this isn't the best squad they could have selected, with a worrying lack of Vancouver players especially. With Krusty at the helm and stars at each position, it is hard to look past them to complete the 4P and continue Korea's reign of dominance. But for perhaps the first time, there is definitely an opportunity this year for someone to seriously challenge them if one of the countries to have ranked below them can step up to the table and grab this opportunity without hesitation. And with that, we've at last reached the end of my complete Overwatch World Cup power rankings, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Of course, I'd love to hear any personal changes you'd make yourself. Remembering that at the end of the day, it's just my own personal opinion. I'll be back tomorrow with my preview and predictions of the Overwatch League playoffs week 2. So if you have enjoyed and don't want to miss out, please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.